My name is Mike Geig. Welcome to our audio session. Thank you all for coming on out and listening to that. We will we'll be working with audio today in Unity. For those of you watching this in the archive, I'll just put this up here real quick because I cut off it previously. Follow us on Twitter, Unity3D, at Mike Geig, which is me, at Will Goldstone, at the Ant Ranch. Yeah, and listen to some audio stuff, and cool. Glad you showed up to hang out. All right, so Unity audio is actually fairly simple. A lot of people don't know how to work with the audio in Unity, and a lot of people feel that the audio is so daunting because anyone can open up Photoshop and make a picture or paint, as you will see, and anyone can kind of learn some programming and stuff like that because it's all very visual and it's based on words and whatnot. But audio tends to kind of freak people out because it's our ears, not our eyes, and audio sampling charts look all weird and spiky like EKGs or whatever, and so people tend to shy away from audio. But it's actually very, very easy to work with. So basically, in Unity, there are three things required for sound. We need a clip. We need something to play. Obviously, some sound bite. And Unity uses, I believe, we can do wave, aux vorbis, .ogg, aux vorbis, maybe MP3. I can't remember what formats Unity allows. I do everything in aux vorbis, and so I don't remember what other formats they allow. But basically, we need a clip. We need some sound, and then we need a source, and the source is what emits our clip, our audio. And then finally, we need a listener, something to listen for the audio, and those three things together make our audio components inside Unity. And now I did prepare this little infographic here, which if you saw it on Facebook, it was kind of already ruined for you, so I apologize for that. But basically, what we have is the premise of audio in Unity. So what we have is we have our listeners, we have our clips, and we have our sources, and that's kind of how they relate to each other. Thank you. I worked very hard on that picture. I appreciate that. I graduated top of my class in Paint Academy, so there you go. So basically, yeah. So we have listeners, clips, and sources, the three things that make audio. We also have this concept, which is basically 3D audio versus 2D audio. And so we're actually gonna look at two types, the two different dimensionalities of audio today, but basically 3D audio actually relates to our dimensionality. Sort of like if I walk very, very far away from something emitting sound, it gets quieter and quieter until eventually I cannot hear it. And that is how we work with 3D audio, or that is what 3D audio basically is. And then we have this concept of 2D audio, where your audio plays at the same level regardless of your distance from it. So if a 2D audio sound is playing, you will hear it. It does not matter where that sound is in relation to a listener or anything like that. If it plays, you hear it full volume every time. And that's our 2D audio, which is basically what I attempted to demonstrate here with my little infographic. I want you all, obviously, to take a second and notice the 3D audio guy's ear, because that took me like 3 or 4 tries to draw that ear. So I really want you to appreciate the amount of work that went into that ear, because I think it's pretty good. If you didn't notice, that's an ear he's holding up to listen to. Anyway, a light bulb. Yeah, no, it's an ear. Anyway, yeah. So basically, all I gotta say, Nicholas, is practice. If you practice, you can get as good at paint as I am, though it takes a lot of time. Yeah, no, it's an ear. Anyway, okay. Yeah, exactly. Quite fantastic. It's not a tumor. Okay, so we have 2D and 3D audio. We have clip sources and listeners, and these are just these components. The things that I just mentioned are all of audio in Unity. It's actually really, really simple. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, when would I use a 2D versus a 3D sound? And it's really kind of simple. Like, if you have some ambient effect, right? So as we're going to see here today, we're going to make the fan that's in this scene make noise, and these turbines make noise, and we'd obviously want that to be 3D effects, because I wouldn't want to be in a different room and hearing that fan. That doesn't make any sense. And then 2D Sounds are great for like your soundtracks to games or menu options or things that really don't have any location, all right? Maybe something makes a noise on your HUD or whatever, which is heads-up display if you didn't know. So you want that to make some noise. And so you'd use 2D as well for that. So you have a couple different options. Now, real quick, what I'm using here is the Robot Lab scene. So nothing here is anything that you can't get. This is the Robot Lab scene. I just downloaded it from the Unity Asset Store. It was under Tutorials, Complete Projects, Robot Lab. And so I just opened up the empty scene, and this is what you get. And I've also put a first-person controller in here. And I've taken the camera that's part of the scene, normally it's up here in the corner, and I've just put it on the first-person controller. So that's what I've done. All right. So if you're sitting here watching this, and you're wondering where this stuff is, you can get it all. It's just I just put a first-person controller in here, and I downloaded from the asset store this Robot Lab. And I'll go ahead and run it real quick. And if I run it, you can just see, I'm able to move through, but I can't hear anything. There's no sound. So we've got this fan right here. We've got these turbines, but there's no audio, and so that's what we want to change. We want to make this scene more impactful, and we are going to do that using audio. All right. So, okay. The last component I mentioned is the first we're going to cover, and that is the audio listener. Because the audio listener is very simple. Every camera has an audio listener on it by default. You can see it right here. And there are no properties for it. I mean, you can turn it on and off, but there are no properties for it. The audio listener just listens. That's all it does. All right. So in 2D, the audio listener is kind of irrelevant. The audio listener can be on anything. It doesn't matter. I can put it on an empty game object. I can put it wherever I want. In 3D, the audio listener is how we are going to determine how far away an object is and thus what volume the object will emit at. All right, and so that's it, just a simple audio listener. You can't have two audio listeners in a scene. All right, you can only have one, and that's why if you have multiple cameras, you got to turn the audio listener off of the additional cameras, because that would be like having multiple sets of ears all over a room. You wouldn't be able to figure out where sounds were coming from and everything like that. It would be very, very confusing, very hard to work with. So we basically just have the one listener, and that's it. All right. So, listeners, very basic. You add a listener, and that's it. Really, nothing more to it. So let's talk about clips, okay? And we have a couple of clips already come packaged in here, and we'll actually make use of those. But I have a clip that I downloaded. So I have these Twitch assets here, and I downloaded this background, which I converted to an AUX 4-bis. Now, this background audio track, in case you all wonder, I have no idea who made it, and I have no idea how they made it or anything like that. I found it on a Creative Commons website because that's where I get all the stuff I do these presentations for, because it just means I can use it however I want. So I grabbed the first audio track I came across, downloaded it, and there it is. So if you're curious about more, I believe it was ccmixer.com or something like that, which is Creative Commons or whatever. That's just where I get the stuff that's basically DRM license free. Yeah, so I just grabbed this track, and we'll use that for background audio. So we have the stuff that's built in, but we also have the background audio. All right. Let's see here. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read through chat here. Yeah, so if you're playing a multiplayer network game, every player has their own camera and thus their own listener, and that's fine. So in case you're wondering, that's kind of... Yeah, you'll be fine in a multiplayer game. Okay, so let's take a look. I'm just going to click this background clip right here. And it's a song, and you can see the wave and all that. And if you're an audio engineer, you might actually know what this means. I have no idea what this means. To me, it's just a bunch of wavy, weird lines. But yeah, I have no idea what that does. And so we'll leave that alone. And so we only really have a few options here. We have 3D sound, which we can check and uncheck that. If we uncheck it, it becomes a 2D sound. If we check it, it becomes a 3D sound. We have force to mono, which means we're basically going to play it on one channel, but we can't force this one to mono. We can choose how it's compressed, whether it's streamed or decompressed on load or in memory, and then we can choose our compression amount, right? I'm not going to mess with any of that right now, but we can. We can certainly do any of these things. But if you don't know a lot about audio, I would just leave these alone. right? The only thing we're really going to do is change the 3D sound to 2D sound if we need to, all right? And actually for this one, this is going to be our background music, so obviously I want this to be 2D. So this one I'm going to uncheck and hit apply. Because there's no sense in keeping this 3D because we want it to be 2D. Yeah. Sorry, 1 second here. I'm still listening to, or checking their chat. All right, fantastic. All right. So we have our clip settings. There's really not a whole lot here. The real bulk of audio happens in our audio source settings. Okay. So let's start by dealing with some 3D audio. Remember, 3D audio is the audio that will change the closer and further you get from it. All right. So what I want to do is I'm going to click on my fan here in this scene, and this is the one I want to emit some audio. Right? So by default, it's got its turning animation, it has its renderers and its materials and stuff like that, and that's all it pretty much has on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Add Component, Audio, Source. And there's a bunch of stuff we can do here. A lot of these things are pro only, like some of our reverb filters and audio effects and stuff are pro only. And really, I mean, you can have your audio engineers make that stuff, and then you don't really need to worry about the pro stuff, but it's just sort of like if you want to take a bunch of clips and you just sort of make them sound different, you can do that there. All right. Let's see. So one question here. My question was, can we control audio features with scripting? Absolutely, we can. Yes, we can control audio with scripting, and we'll get to that at the end here. We'll certainly do that. So now we have this audio source, and let's go through some of the parts of the audio source here. So the first is the audio clip that it's going to play, right? So I'm going to go in here into my audio fan, and there's a fan sound, and I'll just pop it right on there. Great. And it's going to say right here, this is a 3D sound. Perfect. So I know that this sound will change depending on how close and how far away I am, right? It's a 3D sound. We have some options here. We can mute it, make it not make any sound. This is more useful for scripting. Use your script to mute it, right? Because it doesn't make a lot of sense to mute it here inside the editor. So we can mute it. Now we have these three things, these bypasses. So basically, we can have effects that distort all audio in our scene, right? It's a pro-only feature, but we can do that. By checking this, we'll say that this source is not affected by those effects, right? So we're going to ignore those special effects. We don't have any special effects, so I can leave that unchecked. If I did and I didn't want this to be affected by it, I would check it. We also have bypass listener effects. Again, we can check or uncheck that. Leaving these or checking these means we're going to ignore all effects. Unchecking means we will not ignore the effects. But there aren't any effects in this scene, so we're not really going to worry about it. And then reverb zone, same deal. Check it means we'll ignore the reverb zone. Uncheck it means we won't. Again, doesn't really matter. Play on wake determines whether the sound starts as soon as this game object is initialized. Now, since we always want this fan to be playing the fan sound, obviously we're going to have to play on wake. And then we also have loop. Do we want it to loop once it's finished? Absolutely. The fan's never going to stop playing its sound, so we're going to go ahead and leave that looped. Do you save any memory processing by excluding sources from effects? I don't believe so. I believe if you do, it's a negligible amount, but I don't do a lot of audio, so I might be wrong on that. To my knowledge, it's never been an issue with anything that I've worked on, but I don't particularly know. So I'm going to say pass on your question. Sorry about that. I don't believe so. And if it is, I've never heard about it, but that's not saying that there's necessarily not there. Then we also have our priority. The priority is how important this sound is. Now, for those of you who don't know a lot about audio, we have these things called audio channels, right? And every computer kind of has a different amount of audio channels depending on the hardware that's inside of it. And in the olden days, I don't know if people still do this anymore, but in the olden days we used to buy sound cards, which would do like this crazy optimal sound processing and stuff like that. I don't know if people buy sound cards anymore. I don't have a sound card anymore, but some people used to. And so the more powerful audio hardware on your computer, the more channels you would get. The reason I'm telling you about this, yeah, Sound Blaster. The reason I'm telling you about this is because if there are too many sounds and not enough channels, audio starts getting mixed together. And if too much mixing occurs, some sounds can actually be completely dropped, all right? And so we have to pay attention to the priority of our audio. So at 128, we're saying it's right in the middle of the road of priority. if I drop this sound down to 0, it means it's the highest priority. 0 means the highest priority. It will not be dropped. And then 512, or 255, I'm sorry, it says this is the lowest priority, so if things start to get dicey, go ahead and drop this, right? So if I have a ton of effects, the real quiet ones, I might put it at a lower priority. But like my background music, or my theme song, obviously has to be a very high priority, right? Because you don't want your theme song to just stop playing halfway through because it got dropped because it was a lower priority, right? And so, you know, by default, they're 128. I'll just leave it right there. It doesn't really matter. We're not going to have so much audio that it's going to be an issue here, all right? Next, we have the volume. How loud would this play? 1 is 100%, 0 is 0%, and pitch. So pitch is basically how fast is it playing, right? If we pitch up, it'll get that higher squeaky sound to it, and it'll play faster. If we pitch down, it'll get real low and baritone and whatever, and go real slow. So pitch just basically stays at 1. Then we have 3D and 2D settings. 3D settings are only applied if your audio is 3D. 2D settings are only applied if your audio is 2D. Since this is a 3D sound, I can ignore my 2D settings because they will not be applied. All right. Here we go. Yes, I did touch on the difference between audio listener, audio source, and audio reverb. Audio listener listens to audio and has no settings. Audio source emits a clip, and audio reverb zone is just a zone where all the audio that happens inside of it will be reverbed. Okay. Another question, does the priority affect the sound? Does it affect the quality of the sound? No. The quality of the sound will be the same. Priority just determines whether or not it gets dropped. And we don't want it to be certain things to be dropped, so we make them higher priority. But really, you'd have to have a lot of audio for that to become an issue nowadays, because we have a lot of audio channels. I believe on my computer, without a graphics or without a sound card, I have 24 audio channels. I might be wrong, but it's somewhere around there. And so 24 sounds would have to be playing simultaneously before they had to get mixed, right? They get mixed on board, but still. Now, I'm going to get angry emails from audio engineers they tell me that's not exactly what happens. I don't know. I'm not an audio guy. But basically, it's never been a problem. So that's, yeah, it's not a problem for me. So I don't really mess around with it too much. So here are our 3D sound settings. The first is the Doppler effect. All right, and so I saw someone on Facebook saying that they can never get the Doppler effect to work right. So it's important to understand exactly what the Doppler effect does. So if you've ever been standing on the side of the road and seen a car coming, and the car is driving towards you, and then is at your position, and then passes you, right? And you hear that difference in tone and pitch of the car sound, right? It starts real low, and then gets at its highest when it's right by you, right? And then, now I'm thinking in my head, does it get low or high? It gets high. So it starts low, really far away. It gets higher as it gets towards you, and then like goes real low again as it passes you, right? And that's called the Doppler effect. And so basically, the sound the car is emitting is never the same, or is never changing. The car emits the same sound all the time, right? But how the sound waves are compressing because you're standing still when they're close to you, right? That's the Doppler effect. It's sort of like if you were to travel really, 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 really fast, like fly through space really fast, everything in front of you would be red and everything behind you would be blue. And that's a Doppler effect, right? Audio works the same way. The sound waves compress. Basically what that means is as these audio sources are passing you at high speeds, they will distort based on the Doppler effect. Now the Doppler effect is not how much you can hear and how much you can't hear based on your distance. Yeah, like a siren on a cop car sounds different when it's coming towards you than away from you. The Doppler effect has to do with motion and how quickly it's passing you. If an audio source passes you quietly, you're not going to hear a Doppler, or slowly, you're not going to hear a Doppler effect. But if it passes you really fast, you're going to have a great Doppler effect because it's all about motion. But yeah, basically that's your Doppler effect. It has to do with compression. So I just leave this alone, right? Because I don't know, I'm never really traveling all that fast to really notice it. But if you wanted to really exaggerate your Doppler effect, you could bring it up. Or if you just didn't want a Doppler effect, you could bring it down. I just leave it at 1. It's entirely up to you. Mike equals physics professor. I was originally a physics major long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Yeah, so and then we have this volume roll-off. So the volume roll-off is how does it know how much to decrease the volume based on your distance from it, right? And so by default, it's a logarithmic roll-off. So if we're looking here on this chart, this curve here, what we're going to see is that it's going to be full volume when we're standing right on top of it. And then as we back away, it's going to drop off really quick and then fade slow, right? And so that's logarithmic. I don't like logarithmic. I don't think it's all that accurate. But I'll show you some ways we can edit that and stuff like that. But we're going to leave this at logarithmic right now. And then we have this minimum distance. And the minimum distance is how close you have to be before you hear this at 100%. So at 1 unit, right, or closer, I'm going to hear this at 100% volume. I can increase it like this, and we can see how that affects. So now at 21 units, we'll be hearing it at full volume. You can see how that kind of affects everything. All right, but I'll leave that at 1. Our pan level is how much effect our 3D engine has on the audio. So it's not like traditional pan, whether or not you're going to hear it on your left ear or your right ear. It basically has to deal with how much the 3D engine is going to affect the audio, right? I always leave that at 1 because I'm using a 3D audio. I want the 3D engine to affect it, right? But if I had a specific... If I had something in mind, something I was trying to achieve, I could mess with this. Spread is the distance between speakers, virtual speakers in our scene. Don't mess with this unless you know what you're doing. I don't mess with it. It's weird. It sets the spread of 3D sound speaker in space, right? I don't even know what that means. I don't touch spread. Some people use it because they know what they're doing with it. I don't, so I leave it alone. So, sorry, I know I'm supposed to be like the guy teaching you everything here, but I have no idea what spread does. So, feel free to check it out. But I can tell you from experience, I never touch it. I never mess with it, and it's never been a problem. So... yeah, anyway, I leave spread alone. That's entirely up to you, though. And then finally, we have the max distance. And the max distance is how far away will you be before you cannot hear this anymore, all right? And so the idea that 490 units away from this fan, I will still be hearing it, even though it's super quiet, is a bit much. 500 is a really far distance. So I'm going to drop this down to, like, say, 50. Right? And as a matter of fact, for this scene, I'm actually, for now, I'm just going to do 5. I'm only doing 5 so you can see this blue sphere that appears. That tells you how far the audio will be emitted. So if I'm here, I won't be able to hear it, but if I'm here, I will, right? So that just shows me the sphere of influence. For this scene, earlier I was testing it out, and 20 worked really well for me. 20 gives me this nice bubble of being able to hear it, all right? And so at this point, we have this logarithmic drop-off. Right? Between 0 and 1, we're going to have full volume, and then it's going to start to dip out. So let's do this. Let's run our scene. And I'm going to turn the audio on here. And hopefully I don't blast you. And we're going to run our scene. Notice you shouldn't be able to hear anything. Right? And I'm going to get a little closer. Now we can hear something. Right? Hopefully you guys can hear this. I can hear it. And if you look in the... here, I'm going to pause this. If you look right here, you see this line? That's telling me how close the listener is to the audio source. So I can use this line to tell me how loud it should be. Is that really loud? Someone said their ears exploded. I don't know if you're making a joke or if it's really, 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 really loud. Hopefully it's not too loud. Because right now it's super quiet on my machine. Okay, fantastic. And as we get closer, you can hear it more. And we go. We're not even quite to 100% here. There we go. Now we're at 100%. Okay. Now, can you hear this? I just want to make sure where I'm standing right now, you all can hear this. Someone can confirm. Okay, and you can also hear the stereo? Can you hear the stereo? Fantastic. I was not sure this would project in stereo. Fantastic. So I got my left ear and my right ear. Yeah, it should be pretty loud. We're standing right on top of it. Okay, fantastic. And you notice how quiet and how fast it gets. How quickly it gets quiet. See, I'm not a big fan of that. So what I want to do is I'm going to change this from logarithmic to linear. Linear just gives us a nice linear drop. Okay. We could also define our own custom here, but I want to show you linear right now. So let's run this with linear. This gets louder as I get closer. See? So I like linear. I think linear works well for me. But we could also do this. I mean, if we really wanted to, we could do custom, and we could say, we could do something crazy like this. Now watch how this does it. So we get really loud, and then real quiet, and then real loud, and then quiet, and then loud again. So we could certainly do that. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to do that, but we certainly could if we wanted to do something custom. I'm a fan of linear, so I'm going to leave this at linear, just like that. All right, and so we have volume, pan, and spread are denoted, and I just leave that stuff alone. All right, fantastic. So there's our fan. Okay, and we've got our fan right there, and we can see there's here that it's a 3D audio, right? Because as we get closer, it gets louder. So let's do some more. Let's not stop at one. Let's make these turbines make some noise here. So I'm gonna click here and expand my prefabs here and find my turbines, which is there and there. And I'm just gonna hold Control and click both of those. All right. So I got both of those selected. I'm gonna go Add Component, Audio, Source. So now both of these have an audio source. If I click both of them, they're both going to get the same properties and everything. Makes it much easier. Click turbine. I got my turbine audio. I'll drop it in there. I'm going to make it play on wake. I'll loop it. Leave its priority. Leave its volume and pitch. I'll set it to linear drop off. And I will set these also to 20. So now what we can see is there's some overlap. There's going to be an overlap between the two audio, which allows us to hear some mixing that's going to happen, right? So now, I mean, that's real simple there. I just added the sound and set some basic functionality. I'm going to hit play. Now I can hear the turbines. And check this out. Turbines in my left ear, fan in my right ear. All turbine, a little bit of fan. All fan, a little bit of turbine. Right here, you can hear the turbines a lot. So yeah, so it is it's pretty slick what you can do there. Yeah, and we could certainly do a lot of neat effects. We also have audio for the computers. They have this little like bleep bloop tech sounds for the computers and stuff like that. Yeah, sorry if that's real loud for you guys. I didn't know. Here's the thing: is I didn't know how loud this was going to come across to you. And once I start streaming, I can't change it. All effects take place the next time you stream, so I can't make it quieter right now. There's just no way to change that. So sorry. I will know in the future to be quieter. Now, okay. So as we're working through this, say I wanted to make some tweaks in that and whatever. It's kind of a pain to keep having to hit play every time I want to test my audio out, right? And I have to rerun it and all this stuff. It's kind of annoying. So what we have is the ability to click this button right here and actually hear our audio in the scene without running it, which allows us to test, right? So our scene's not running, but that certainly allows us to test things out and play around with our audio. And the sounds will be restarted every time I turn that on or off again, all right? So yeah, so we can click this to test and things like that. So we don't actually have to play our scene every time, but I think it's fun because then I get to see it as you actually move around with your height and that sort of thing. All right. Does Unity have a sound mapping to visually see the overlap? I don't think so. I mean, I can select those and this, and I can see the overlap right here if I want by just selecting all three. I mean, that certainly works quite well. Is there a way to view audio clipping in a scene? I'm not entirely certain what you mean, but yeah, just let me know. Let's see, wireframe. Wireframe shows me that. Not particularly useful, but yeah, but we can. I mean, we can see it just like that, just by visualizing it right there. All right. How can we include footsteps of the player? That's easy. Just put a source on the character controller, and when your velocity is greater than 0, just play the sound, and your audio listener will just hear it. Yeah, it's true too. If it's too loud, we can always change the volume here in the audio source, but I didn't really want to mess with that right yet. So okay, so here we have our 3D sound, right? We've got that working quite nicely. So let's look at some 2D sound now. And 2D sound really doesn't matter. And I want to illustrate how much it doesn't matter. I'm going to like just come way out here. And I'm going to create an empty game object. All right? Just way far away. Now I'm going to add an audio source. And to this audio source, I am going to apply this background music I downloaded before. All right? You have to give the audio source to an object. It is a component. A component emits audio, so it has to be on an object. But you can always create an empty game object to do this. Let's see. Why doesn't my player have amazing 3D ears? Really should. So I created this empty game object way far away from my scene, and I put the sound on it. I can see this is a 2D sound. So I know immediately that it will not be affected by distance. We are going to play on wake. We are going to loop. I don't have to worry about any of these 3D settings because they do not matter. My 2D settings is just my 2D pan, left ear versus right ear, which I don't want to mess with. The only thing I want to do is I'm going to turn down the sound. All right, because my background audio, I don't want it to overpower me, right? So it's background audio. Make it real simple there. Real quiet. I'll leave the pitch the way it is. I'll leave the priority. Actually, I'll drop the priority down a little bit since they're background audio. I don't want to lose it, even though I only have 3 audios in the game, so I'm not really going to lose it. And then I'm going to click on my first-person controller and come back into my scene. That's way out there in space, right, way back there. Let's run our scene. So we know we got this nice little jazzy sensation going on, and that's playing regardless of the distance, and we have our turbines and our fan, and yeah, so now what we have is a much more impactful scene, right? So I should have got like some techno or something like that, but I figured it'd be harder to talk over. So basically we have a fan that's making sound, some turbines, some background music. Oh, hey!
100-inch television.
It's got vocals. I didn't even know that. I've never listened to it this far. I had no idea that it had vocals in it. So there we go. Yeah. So, but check this out. So just so you can see, because we had talked about pitch. If I pitch this up, all right, and then I play it. See? There we go. I want to get to the part where he sings now. That's pretty smooth. I like that a lot. But let's drop this down to like say, there we go. Yeah, I like that effect. I think that certainly works. Yeah. Anyway, okay, now I'm just playing around. Yeah. So truly, though, someone mentioned slow-mo just now. Yeah, you can certainly do that. So if you basically had an effect that went into bullet time or whatever, you could certainly just pitch down all the audio in your game, and there you go, bullet time, right? Yeah. Well. Traditional pitch changes playback speed as well. It's newfangled software allows you to kind of mess with pitch without changing speed, but yeah, normally they did both. Yeah, well, that's why I said this morning is I was just too busy screwing around with sounds, and I didn't even get anything like really set up because I was just having too much fun playing with audio. But anyway, yeah, so now we have these 2D effects, we have these 3D effects, we combine them, and what we end up with is this really kind of cool, effective scene, right? Because audio really adds so much to a game, and a lot of people sort of neglect audio and wait until the very end, you know, and so we can certainly fix that by adding it in Unity, actually, really simply. So, cool. All right, so at this point, let's see here. I'm looking through my notes. I'm going to talk about scripting now real quick here. So the first thing I want to do is I am going to make a script that will allow me to... I'm sorry, I'm reading chat and someone mentioned Doge or dog. I don't even know how to pronounce it, but so wow. But basically what I want to do is I want to add a script that's going to allow me to quickly and easily turn on and off my background sound, right? And that doesn't really serve a lot of purpose. I just want to illustrate to you some of the things we can do to change audio really simply. Let's see, is it possible to change variables with automation? For example, after a big explosion, pitch down the entire sound, like the film Saving Private Ryan. Absolutely, yeah. So you can keep your audio sources obviously on the different things. You can create audio managers that know where the different things are. You can actually apply listener effects to tone everything down you hear, which is probably one of the easier things, is to apply a listener effect. But yeah, there's all sorts of things that you can do. Sound, okay, Twitchy J, sound can be 2D or 3D in Unity. To make something 2D or 3D, you just change this checkbox right here on the sound properties. Clicking here makes it 3D, clicking here makes it 2D. It's really that simple. So yeah, you can do both. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a script now that's going to allow me to control just a real kind of simplistic thing. So I'm going to create a new C# script, and I'm just going to call it audio script. And I really should put this in a scripts folder, just for the sake of being correct. So I'll drop that down there. And I'll open up my audio script, which takes a second. New model develop. I like it. It's a bit slower. I can teach you how to play audio, and then all you have to do is put that on the... so one of the questions, can you teach us how to play audio on a collision? I can teach you how to play audio and just put that code on a detected collision, and then you're done. Just make sure the audio is set to not loop, because that would be weird to have a looping collision sound. So I have my audio script here, and I'm just going to sort of clean some stuff up here, because I really need to figure out how to make it do this by default, so I don't have to do this every time, because I just like things a certain way. So what I want to do is basically set it so that so whenever I hit the space bar, it's going to turn the audio on or off. Yeah. So someone said, chat here, Metrazol said, do you balance your collision code so it doesn't play 1,000 or 100 times? Your audio source can only play once, and while it's playing, it's playing. So calling play on something that's already playing won't do anything. And I'm actually going to show you how to detect if it's currently playing, and so not play again. So you actually won't have that problem. And yes, I can make this bigger. How's that? That should be better for you there. So now you can read it. I always forget that it doesn't zoom in for you guys. Okay, so what I want to do is basically, this is really kind of a cheap way of doing it, but here I'm going to say if input dot get button down, and I'm going to search for the jump button, which is just the space bar by default. All right. So get button down, and then I am going to say basically what I can do is say audio dot play or audio dot stop, right? But what I want to do is I want to say if it is playing, stop it, and if it's not playing, start it. So I'm going to say if audio dot play, which will just return a boolean, and I will say audio.stop. All right. Oh, and not play. I'm sorry. Whoops. That is playing is what I want. I can say equals true, or I can just say like that. So if the audio is currently playing, stop it. All right. And if your audio is not currently playing, start it. Yeah, I do apologize for my keyboard. My keyboard is mechanical and it's loud. Autocomplete, stop it. Oh, because it's not start, it's play. That's what I get for trying to code and read chat at the same time. So basically what we have the ability to do is use the space bar to turn on and off our audio. So I'll just go ahead and save this. And see, all we have to do is refer to audio just by audio, right? And any audio source that is also on whatever game object the script is on will just work. So now I'll come back here to Unity, and I will take this script, and I will put it on my background game object. So we can see we have a source and our audio script, and then I'll press play. So we hear our jazz music. I hit space, no jazz music. Nice and easy. You're saying that I don't need the else? Why wouldn't I need the else? If I don't have the else, it's just going to start my audio every time I jump. The else is absolutely mandatory. Yes, we need our else. Okay. Now, some... I'm not stuck. What? No, the else is required. Absolutely. If I took the else out, it would just... If it was playing, it would stop it, and then it would immediately play it again every single time. We don't want to trigger it every time. We want to toggle, so else is necessary. Okay, anyway, we can also do some other stuff with our audio, just to show you guys. If I type in audio, we can do all sorts of stuff. So we can apply an audio or get an audio animation. We can check our bypass effects. These have all the normal game object stuff, collider, which it is obviously not going to have. We can affect our Doppler effect. I believe we can mess with it. We can mute it. Here's our pan. Here's our pitch, in case you want to pitch up and down and stuff like that. We can play delayed. Play delayed is kind of cool. It allows us to start the audio after some delay, like 1.5 seconds, right? So basically, instead of saying play, we'll play it after a period of time. So let's check that out. So I have this play, but I'm going to say play on delayed, and I will say 1.0 seconds, all right? So now what happens is I'll play this. Oops. Play on delayed. Did I type it wrong? Wait a minute. You get so reliant on autocomplete that when you don't have it... Oh, yeah, play delayed, not play on delayed. You guys are supposed to figure this stuff out for me and not let me make these mistakes while I'm broadcasting live and whatnot. You're supposed to save me, so I'm going to blame you for that mistake. So let's go ahead and play this here. So I hit space, it stops, right? Now when I hit space again, which you'll all know because you're going to hear my large mechanical keyboard make a loud clack sound, it's going to take 1 second before the audio to start up. And there we go, right? So yeah, so basically we can play on delay, which is actually pretty cool as well. So yeah, and actually, I tell you what, let's see here. Let's do this. Let's, now you're prompting me to screw around here. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's do a cube. Just because someone asked about collision, so I can show you that. Make sure this is something that I can actually run into. Yep, fantastic. All right, so let's see here. So my cube has a box collider, which is not a trigger, and this does not have a rigid body. I always get real foggy about the rules of collision of different types of objects. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and apply an audio source. And I have another, and let's see here. I have another clip called Explosion, which I'm going to bring in here and drop into, I'll just drop it into the basic folder. So this is just an audio explosion. So on my cube, I'll put the explosion on there. I will not play on wake. I will not loop it. I will leave everything kind of as it is. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a script, which I'm going to do new C# script called collision script. So now what I have here is I have a cube that has an audio source on it with an explosion sound. I've created a collision script, which I'm also dropping on the cube, and the collision script is going to say collision script. I'm going to get rid of all this junk, and I'm going to say void on collision. I think it's just on collision, and then see, then I have to remember. I don't have to remember these off the top of my head. This is probably silly to just attempt to do off the top of my head, but whatever. We'll figure it out. Audio play. That's probably not right, but let's see if I'm right. Probably shouldn't have put it so far away, so I have to run there every time. Nope, not quite. It might be on... Maybe this one returns a collider. I really don't want to pull up the documentation right now. If I can't remember this off the top of my head, then I'm just going to stop doing that. Is it on collision enter? Thank you. It is the on collision enter. Does that take a collider? Thank you. See? Legion of helpers. I appreciate that. Nope. Oh well. You get the idea. Basically, we want the right collision here, and of course, since I'm live in front of everybody, I can't remember exactly which function it is, but you get the idea. So basically, when we collide, we are going to play some audio just like this, and that's that. All right, and and at that point, it's not really something like that. Because, yeah, we either want on collision enter or just collision enter or on collide enter or on collide. I don't remember. There's a bunch of them. But anyway, we can make one of those work. If we use a trigger, but the trigger won't work because our first-person controller don't have a rigid body, and triggers only interact with rigid bodies. So, yeah. Anyway, you get the idea. We'd collide there and whatnot. And I'm sure everyone on the YouTube page or whatever will be sure to point out my folly when the time comes. That is always what happens. Oh well, whatever. You guys get the idea, and that's all that's important. Is the idea that basically we just need to determine when the collision happens, and then we call our explosion by saying play, and it makes the explosion sound, and everything's well and good. Now, one more thing I do want to show you is that we can change. Yeah, I don't even know what on collision enter is. That's not even a real function. You guys are messing with me. So I'll just get rid of that. One more thing we want to do is we want to be able to change our clip. All right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it. I'm going to come back here to my audio script here. And I am going to make it so that when I hit the space bar, it doesn't stop playing. It changes the audio clip. All right. So what I want to do is I am going to say. Let's see here. Public audio clip, new clip. So we'll have this clip here. And then I'll say, when we press the jump, I am going to say audio.clip equals new clip. So effectively what we're doing is we are going to, sorry about that, I'm trying to read chat. Yeah, anyway, so what we're going to do is whenever we hit the spacebar, we are going to switch our clip, and we're going to hear a new sound. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our smooth background noise, and I'm going to replace that with, where's my audio at? Actually, I'll do this. I will replace it with a 2D repeating explosion. Put that right there. So basically when I hit the spacebar, our explosion is going to become our clip, and we're going to hear that continually. So here we have our jazz. I hit spacebar, and whoa, was that a 3D effect or a 2D effect? Explosions 2D. That's what it's supposed to sound like. So it does have its audio component. Oh, maybe once I switch, I need to play. That's what I get for going off script. Oh yeah, sorry about that, you guys. That might have been a little loud. My apologies. There we go. And it'll keep looping. Alright, I forgot that I hadn't turned down the volume of the clip like I had turned down the volume of the background music. So really sorry, everybody. That was even loud in my ears. I do, I do apologize for that. Yeah, explosion. So basically all we do is when we hit the space bar, we just change the clip to some new clip, right? And we play that clip. So basically what that means is you're not going to add multiple audio sources to one object. You can have one audio source in an array or collection of clips and switch which clip you want that to currently play. All right. Yeah, shame on everybody who wasn't quite watching the screen at that moment or paying attention. That, you know, you deserve getting scared. So anyway. All right. So at this time, I think I've pretty much covered everything in audio that I wanted to cover. So we talked about the difference between the clips, the sources, the listeners. We talked about 2D, 3D audio. We talked about the different the listener component, which really doesn't have any settings, and the audio source settings, which is really where the meat and potatoes of all of our stuff comes in. We talked about how to test in the scene. We created a few 3D effects. We created our background music, which was a 2D effect. We talked a little bit about scripting. So we're actually a little bit shy of an hour. So yeah, if we have some questions, I'd be more than happy to field some questions now, because we are ahead of schedule, which is unusual. Reverb zone. Yeah, let's take a look at reverb zone. So what I'm going to do is create an empty game object. I've only ever made a reverb zone once, so pardon me if this doesn't work exactly right, but it should. I think I remember how it works. So I've created an empty game object here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add component audio, and I'm going to add a reverb zone. All right, and my reverb zone, is that illustrated on here? It is illustrated on here. So the audio inside the reverb zone should get modified, and we could kind of change some of our presets of what kind of reverb we want, like a padded cell, living room, that sort of stuff. And to my knowledge, the effect is very subtle. I'm not sure if we'll hear it very well on the turbines or not, but let's take a look here. So I'm going to go ahead and you can hear it a little bit. You guys hear the difference? I don't know if you can hear the difference or not. Let me actually. Can you hear the difference? I don't know if you guys can hear it or not. It's a very little, it's kind of a subtle thing. You know, basically it adds just a tiny bit of echo to it, I guess is what we'd say about reverb. Let's say quarry. I don't know, let's see what a quarry sounds like. The turbines are already pretty turbulent. Oh, I jumped and I got my explosion. Whoops. Sorry about that. I forgot my jump would cause an explosion. But yeah, so basically the reverb effect just basically adds kind of a tiny little. Let's bring it over to the fan to see if the fan maybe emit it a little more easier. Let's make the reverb distance, let's make it much bigger. Everything reverbs. And let's see here. See, this is where we're getting all this stuff that I don't know anything about. Let's do a stone corridor. Let's make me jump. So yeah, we get a little bit more echo there. Anyway, yeah, so that's your reverb zone. You basically just set up a zone, and everything inside of it will make, it'll just kind of slightly adjust that sound to be more, in this case, reverby, right? Which is kind of like an echo effect. All right. Yeah, let's get rid of this explosion thing. I'm just going to go ahead to my game object and get rid of that script. There we go. Now I can jump with impunity. Yeah, kind of off-topic question by Total Shaden, 87. I don't know. Yes, you can work with Unity across GitHub. There are a few articles on how to do that in existence, one of which I wrote. So if you search for it, you will find something by me and probably other people. And yes, you can do that. Let's see. Reverb will bring the sounds, or the reverb will bring all the sounds in the room together, so like the same vibe to them. All right, yeah, I always thought it just caused kind of like an audio anything. Would I know anything about audioclip.get spectrum data for tracing pitch frequencies? Nope. I don't know a lot about the actual nuts and bolts of audio. I'm not an audio engineer. I'm one of those people as well who kind of shies away from audio. I know how to set it up. I know how to take something the audio engineers make and put it in a scene and then have that work, you know. But as far as the actual how audio works and the mathematics behind frequency and all that, no, do not. And actually, it occurs to me that most of the questions that you're going to ask me about the audio, I'm probably not going to know the answer to, just because you're asking me questions specifically about audio, which I do not have the answers about. So yeah. Having too many audio sources in a scene can impact performance. Having too much of anything in a scene can impact performance, absolutely. But what you're going to see is you have too much audio. Most of your performance impact will be in mixing the audio or truncating a lower priority audio. But you have to have a lot of audio for that to happen. And it's really, I mean, the best way to know for sure, if you have Pro, is to use the profiler. And if you have not Pro, to just use your stats here to kind of help you track that. Anyway, okay, so now we have hit our hour mark, so we're going to go ahead and sort of, could I do a little blap about adjusting pitch via script? I certainly could. We are going to wrap up here, so this will be my last question. But if I do audio.pitch, all right, which is a property, so it allows me to get and set. I can set my pitch equal to, like, say, 3, right? Or set it to 1 for regular, or down pitch it. Like that, you know. Basically, that's all you basically do. Audio.pitch, and you set it equal to some value, or I could do float x equals audio.pitch, right, and to store it. Just like any other property works. It's real simple. Okay, so with that, we are going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you all for attending. Sorry we had a couple little technical issues with the audio and some questions I couldn't answer. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter later. If you have any additional questions about audio, and even though I can't answer them, I can pass them on to the people that can, and I can get you an answer. So I do apologize for my limited knowledge of audio there. But at least we got a scene up with some pretty cool sound. Again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, just want to say hi, whatever, follow us on Twitter, at Unity3D, at Mike Geig, which is me, at Will Goldstone, and at The Ant Ranch. Feel free to hang out, and we will... yeah, if you have suggestions for upcoming sessions, let me know. I'm always looking for new sessions to work on to get going for you guys. So, yeah, anyway, thanks very much, everyone, for watching, and I appreciate it. And you all have a fantastic week. And if you celebrate Thanksgiving, you all have a fantastic Thanksgiving. All right, thank you very much.